Okay guys, well in my previous video we talked about part 1 of this recording transactions assignment. So now we're going to look at part 2. So there's just one kind of additional thing we're going to look at here in part 2. So let's get to it. You'll see here's the list of transactions, and what's going to be different is they start to tell us the check numbers that they're working with, or the memo number, or maybe a receipt number. Okay, that's just kind of documentation about the transaction that we're also going to want to record into our general journal when we're transferring these over. So let's scroll on down here. The first one, again, I did for you to give you an example, but this one they actually didn't even give us a documentation notice in this transaction, so this one is exactly like part 1 of the assignment, so I'm going to just skip over that one because it looks exactly the same. Okay, so let's go on to transaction number 2 here. So on January 6th, this David Transport Service issued a check number 506 for $2,000 to buy a computer system. Okay, I even wrote you a little reminder here, don't forget about that check number because we're going to need to record it this time. Alright, so we wrote a check and we need to analyze this transaction. So the accounts that are going to be affected here, so it doesn't say we're buying on account or anything, or that we're paying for a purchase that we made earlier. So we're writing the check as we're buying the computer system. Okay, so this is right away. This should tell you that if computer system is what we're buying, this is going to affect our computer equipment account, and for writing a $2,000 check there on the spot, this is also going to affect our cash in bank account. Okay, and I'm kind of bummed because they didn't give you, back up here, they didn't give you account names to work with like they did last time, so we're going to just have to determine the names based on the information we're given. So if we're buying a computer system, we're going to put that into a computer equipment account. Okay, so then the next part is to determine what types of accounts these are. So computer equipment and cash in bank are both, yes, asset account. I don't want to tell you guys right away. I want you to be able to kind of leaving you some space to think about what types of accounts those are, and maybe answer it before I do. So this means that our computer equipment account will increase, since we're making a purchase toward this account. It's going to increase this account by $2,000. And if that's going to increase that account by $2,000, that means we're paying cash, so our cash is going to decrease by $2,000. And I put this many bullets here for a reason, because you guys should be walking through this step by step, listing something at every bullet. Okay, so don't just leave those blank. So when we move on to our step 2, our debit and credit rule, let's move that back over there. This is going to increase our asset account, which is going to be recorded as always a debit. So our computer equipment is debited for $2,000. And then, oh, I have too many spaces there. Now, decrease in assets is always recorded as a credit. So always we have always a debit, always a credit. Okay, so always keep that in mind. So our credit is going to be our cash in bank. It's credited for $2,000. Okay, we have our steps mapped out. Now we need to copy it over into our T account. So this time I left accounts blank. Okay, so you're going to have to determine the account yourself. So let's look at, we said our first one's going to be computer equipment. And I didn't give you enough room in there, so I like to just have things perfect. I'm going to extend that one out. Oops, maybe a little further. Get our computer equipment line all in one line. And so this is an asset account, so that means it's going to increase or decrease on the debit side. Yes, increase and decrease. Then we have our cash account, which is going to also increase and decrease on the credit side. And we said the amount was for $2,000. Cash is going to decrease $2,000. Okay, then we copy that down into our general journal now. So what date were we working with? This was on January 6th. So we put in January 6th. We put our debit first, always our debit transaction first. So we have computer equipment getting debited for $2,000. We have, again, we indent to show our credit. Cash in bank. I should have finished with cash in bank up here. So we're crediting our cash in bank for $2,000. Okay, so the additional step with this part 2 is we need to document, or we need to copy in our documentation. So the check number of 506, that's what tells us, that's kind of the proof that this whole transaction took place. Okay, so we're going to copy that information just on the following line here. So, and I like to just kind of abbreviate everything. Check number 506. Okay, that tells me that I have proof that this transaction took place, that I wrote the check for $2,000 to whatever business for my computer equipment. Okay, so that is the only additional step in this assignment. So you're going to go through on the rest of these transactions and record them just like we did in part 1 in our T accounts, copy them into your general journal, and then just remember to also put in your documentation. Okay, that's all there is to it. Let me know if you have any questions.